Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm discussing Frosty the Snowman, which was originally released on December 7th, 1969. So it's celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. And it is based on the song Frosty the Snowman, which was originally released in 1950. And then there was also a 3-minute animated special. But this one, of course, is the classic, the 25-minute animated special that is narrated by Jimmy Durante. And I loved this so much as a kid. It's one of those specials you watch every year, never gets old. It's timeless. It's so heartfelt and joyous. I love it so much. And I remember watching it really young at my grandma's house. And it's funny, like, when you're a kid, things you think. Like, when I was really young watching this, and when the credits would come at the beginning, I would think that meant it was over. That was my kid logic, because credits come at the end, so I didn't understand that. I was like, wait, it's already over? Like, I just love Frosty, though. He's just so infectiously joyous, and he's got that childlike wonder and innocence to him. This is just such a heartwarming tale, and I realize the irony with Frosty being a snowman. And I did build a snowman when I was younger. My siblings and I did. We built a snowman. It's so fun building a snowman when you're a kid. And it's just, when you're a kid, like, you believe in that magic. Like, the kids, of course, don't question it at all when Frosty comes to life. And then the adults, though, they all freak out. All those reactions are hilarious. First off, though, the villain in this movie, he is so mean and selfish, as villains tend to be, but he is very comical, too. Professor Hinkle, who's just this awful magician, and I love his rabbit, Hocus Pocus. Hocus is so cute, and he reminds me of my pet rabbit that I used to have. I mentioned her at one point. She was a white rabbit with red eyes. She was so cute. Her name was Snowflake, but we called her Snowy for short. I loved her. But I love Hocus. He's so adorable. And all the school children, of course, Karen, the main girl in this. It's weird, though, so the narrator's saying how it's Christmas Eve, and how are they still in school on Christmas Eve? And then, of course, like, the first snow of the season, and how the narrator says that is just the greatest joy, like any kid could tell you. And it's so true. When you're a kid and it's snowing, that's just so exciting, especially when you get a snow day. That is the greatest thing, of course. No school, you get to go outside and play in the snow, and it's just so much fun. And then you come in, you're freezing, and then you just warm up with some hot cocoa or a nice warm blanket, just all that stuff, and making snow angels. And the snow, it's magical. It really is when you're a kid. And then when you're an adult, snow becomes a nuisance. It's so sad, like, thinking of it as a jaded adult with snow, and it's so much fun. When you're younger, you get to play in the snow, but then it's not fun. Nowadays, when you think of it, you got a shovel, or messes with your commute, and it's dangerous, driving with the ice. So that's the way it goes. But just holding on to that childlike wonder, I guess that's one of the many things I love about this special, that when I watch it now, it makes me remember all of that stuff that I love from childhood about the snow that really, for me, sadly, like, went away, since now it's, well, if it snows, you still gotta work. On the rare occasion when your office closes, that's nice, but you still gotta go into work, or you could work from home, whatever. But when you're a kid, you get that snow day, that's the best thing. So then the kids, when they build Frosty, and then the boys, it's cute too, like, because they're young. I wonder how old they're supposed to be, maybe 8 or 9 or 10 or so, I would think. Usually I would think around 4th grade or so. But when the boys saying, oh, Karen, you could build the head, and then she's saying the head is the hardest part. It's just very cute. I don't know, it's just again, the childhood innocence. And it's interesting, though, that Frosty, he's just too, like, he's got the big torso and just the head, because typically I think with snowmen you build, I guess it's different for everyone, but we built it with 3 parts to it. It's like the bottom as the base, then like the torso, and then the head. We used buttons, and we put a scarf, and then I guess everyone does something different, like maybe you use sticks, maybe you gotta have the carrot nose, but Frosty doesn't have the carrot nose, though. He's got the broom, of course, and then Professor Hinkle, the terrible magician, when the hat flies away and then they put it on Frosty and then he just comes to life. Happy birthday. And it's never explained why he says that. I think as a kid I thought he's saying that because he thinks it's his birthday. That's his first words. He's born. He's come to life. It's just, again, so adorable because he's got that childlike spirit too. Everything's new and exciting to him and he's alive. It's like, oh, what a great things happen to a nice guy like me. And they're just so excited, the kids. They just start singing with Frosty. I love that. But then, of course, when Professor Hinkle takes the hat back saying, oh, this is my hat, so it's really magic. But then Karen's saying, well, you threw it away. And he's saying, oh, you naughty, naughty girl. He's just like, shut the heck up, God. Like, how are you a failed magician? Like, that's really... It's just pathetic. It's just, wow. He's just really a funny antagonist. I don't know. But the song, of course, is iconic. Love the song when they're marching through the town. And it's funny, though, with Frosty, how when first he's talking about the thermometer, it's like, oh, I hate red thermometers, because then when the temperature goes up, I start to melt. I get all wishy-washy. And then when he's talking after they are parading around, walking through the streets, all the kids. Oh, and also another thing I want to mention, though, when they are trying to figure out what to name Frosty, that's funny too. So, like, all the humor in this, you don't pick up on it as a kid, but then now as an adult, I just find it hilarious. Like when the kids are saying, oh, what should we name him? And then one girl says Christopher Columbus. No. And then the little kid says, oatmeal. Like, they're like, what? Oatmeal? That's a cute name for a snowman. Why not? Oatmeal. That's adorable. But Frosty, the perfect name. But anyway, then when they're in the street walking around, and then when the cop stops them, like they're going to walk through traffic, and he's like, didn't you see that traffic light? And Frosty's saying, what's a traffic light? It's like, the lamppost. What's a lamppost? So, and then when Karen's explaining, oh, he just came to life. He doesn't know much about things. It's like, oh, that's all right. He just came to life. Came to life! And he swallows his whistle. But it's funny that Frosty, like his vocabulary, that he understands thermometers and how when the temperature goes up, he gets warm and he melts. So it's funny how he understands that in relation to himself being a snowman. But he doesn't understand the word lamppost or traffic light, but he understands thermometer. So I just find that interesting. And then he realizes he has to go to the North Pole, and then Karen decides to go with him when they try to buy a ticket, but they don't have any money. And then Hocus tags along too. And they go into that refrigerated box car. And that Hinkle guy when he's under the train. And it's just so cute, that little bond with Frosty and Karen. And then when she's freezing, he's like, oh, are you okay, Karen? Are you cold? It's like, oh, that's a silly question. You wouldn't be sneezing if you weren't cold. And she's shivering. But Hocus is all toasty because he's got his fur. And Frosty, of course, being a snowman. And then it's sweet that Frosty knows, like, he has to get Karen home. She needs to be warm, otherwise she'll get sick out in the cold. Oh, my goodness. Can't think too much about all the actual dangers they put themselves in. It's just about friendship and childlike wonder. That's really what it's about. But I love the part with all the woodland animals, though, and they help out Frosty, and they build a fire for Karen. And, of course, Professor Hinkle. Why is his name Professor Hinkle? It's just... And then when they escape Professor Hinkle, because Frosty just is using his snow belly just to go down the hill, because snow logic of a living snowman, just able to rapidly go down the hill like it's a sled. And then when they end up at the greenhouse, oh, and it's also funny, though, it's funny with Hocus that he just uses his charades to communicate. I love Hocus, he's so adorable. And first when Frosty's saying, oh, what are we going to do, Hocus? We need to find someone who will help us. And then Hocus does all of his little charades, and he's like, no, not the Marines. And then it's like, no, not the President of the United States. And then Hocus takes the snow, makes it into a beer, and he's like, oh yeah, Santa Claus, he'll help us. So then when they end up at that greenhouse, and then he's saying, oh, it must be nice and warm in there. And then he says, oh, well, let's go inside. And Karen says, oh, but you'll melt. I'll just stay for a minute. And I'm like, so then, of course, when Professor Hinkle closes it, but then how come he couldn't just, just, again, I'm being, just for the sake of being nitpicky, I know should just overlook these things, but why couldn't he have just opened it? I mean, that's bizarre if it just locks from the inside. But then I like the part too when, it also was funny it was funny when Professor Hinkle fell off the train or whatever. He tumbled down when he jumped off the train after Frosty and Karen and Hocus had gotten off the train. Then when he jumps down, he crashes and the snow piles on top of him. And then at one point there was a squirrel laughing at him. That was hilarious to me. But then it was also funny, though, when Hocus finds Santa and Hocus is explaining to Santa what happened with his little bunny charades. He's so cute. And then the narrator, when he says, Santa listened to what Hocus had to say because, as you know, he speaks fluent rabbit. He understands fluent rabbit. And of course Santa does. Santa's magic. He can understand all creatures. But that was just funny to me. And then I will admit, no matter how many times I've seen this, I tell myself I'm not going to cry. I mean, I've seen it so many times. And yet, when Santa and Hocus walk in, the looks on their faces, and then I just started crying. And then that part when Karen's just crying, you just see the puddle that was Frosty and his pipe and his hat, and I get so emotional. Just poor Karen in that moment, thinking Frosty's gone and he was her friend and she misses him. And then, of course, Santa there with his magic to make everything better, saying, Karen, don't cry. That Christmas snow is magic, so Frosty isn't gone forever. And then he just makes Frosty again, puts the hat back on, happy birthday, and everything's okay again. It's just so sweet. And when they're all dancing, Karen, Santa, Hocus, and Frosty, I love that. And then when, again, Professor Hinkle's still wanting the hat, and Santa's saying, if you try to take that hat, or if you so much as touch the brim, I'll never bring you another Christmas present again. He's like, no more magic balls or trick cards. No. And then his punishment is to go home and write, I'm very sorry 100 zillion times. That's a bit excessive. Couldn't he just donate, do something else than go write something over and over? Do something giving and kind. But whatever, again, I just being nitpicky for the sake of being nitpicky. But and then he's so excited. Then if you do that, then maybe you'll see a gift in your stocking tomorrow morning. He's I got busy. And he's hopping like a rabbit himself. Oh my goodness. He's maybe a new hat. So he's excited. So he's got to go home and redeem himself. And then when they drop off Karen, something I never noticed until just watching it this time, that when Frosty hugs Karen, and then he gives her a kiss goodbye, too. A little kiss on the cheek. That's just so cute. And then they just fly away. So it's cute, though. I guess Frosty is now Santa's helper on the sleigh. But, I mean, and then Karen's just waving on the roof. So hopefully her parents were okay that she was gone. How's she going to explain that? Well, Mom and Dad, I was with a snowman that came to life. We went to the North Pole. He melted. Santa came. But it's okay, I'm home now, so it's okay. But also, so she's on the roof, and there's no how's she gonna get down from the roof? There's no chimney. But again, it's just minor details. I'm being a jaded adult. I'm just, I can't help but point those things out, though. It's just funny to me, pointing out that kind of stuff now that you don't question as a kid. You don't even notice that kind of stuff as a kid. But then it's cute when Frosty and they're all marching again. And another detail that I never really picked up on, I guess, but that Professor Hinkle has a new hat. So there you go. He redeemed himself. He's got a new hat. And then it's just so cute. I'll be back on Christmas Day. It's just so sweet. I love this special. It warms my heart. It reminds me of that childlike wonder and joy and excitement of snow and believing in that magic that snowmen maybe can come to life. It's just so pure and so sweet. And again, so heartwarming. So Frosty is himself. He is so warm. Such a kind, warm soul. Love Frosty. Love this special. And with that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Storytelling Saga, as well as on Twitter at Storytell Saga. You can also send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by leaving me a message in the contact section of storytellingsaga.com or by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, howdy ho! I'll be discussing all of the South Park Christmas specials. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.